Come and stand in the river, current gentle and slow. Send your troubles down water.
My mother and I immigrated to the United States in '88, and so I grew up in Maryville, and I heard a Highlander, but it's in your backyard. So I didn't appreciate it. I wasn't focused on that until I went to Berea. When I went to Berea, I got a wonderful perspective.
Dreams beyond every dread.
This right here is my second year attending Highlanders. At first, I was with Highlanders Season Fire 2007. This is my second year back during the 75th reunion. And I'm very glad to be here because, first of all, what makes me feel so great to be here is that simply because you all feel like you're a family. You're all united as one. Second of all, you get to sing, you get to chat. Oh my God, you just love one another.
You know, when I came here to work in the Highlander archives and I was reading Miles's notes from that he did in Denmark on these little, and I remember the day I found them, I was totally fascinated with these little note cards, that he wrote to himself when he was in Denmark. And it says, get a place, go back, and start. That was one thing that was on the note cards. And then the other thing is when he was working in the little town of Ozone, Tennessee, and he was working with this community organization, and he began to think about if people came together and talked about their problems, that they didn't have to have the answers. And I remember when I was doing that in the archives, and I thought, no, this is way too simple. He must have had in his mind a worked out, because Miles was very cagey and a very smart man. And I thought, I'm sure he had this worked out better than this, And as I stayed here and worked here and worked with Miles over that, time that I was here, I realized that is in essence his philosophy of work, and that as long as Highlander does that, as long as it really trusts people to come together to solve their own problems, that there'll be democracy in the making here, and that's really to me, that's what Highlander is all about.
We'd better listen to the voices from the mountains, trying to tell us what we just might need to know. 'Cause the empire's days are numbered if we're counting, and the people just get stronger blow by blow. We'd better listen when they talk about strip mining. They're gonna turn the rolling hills to acid clay. And if we're preaching all about that silver lining, we'll be preaching till the hills are stripped away.
There's always a place for all of us to work in unity. And I'm asking us to understand that just like we, the young folks 45 years ago, came in with new ideas, new energy, moved this whole thing to another level. The young folks today is willing, ready, and able to take this thing from where we have carried it to another level, but they ain't quite figured it out as to how they gonna deal with us, who is still sitting there being gatekeepers. So for all of you young folks that's in here, you let them know that you got it from Hollis, a guy that's got a lot of years, but he's still young. Said to the young folks, what you have to do is respectfully talk to the old folks and ask them to get out of the way. And if they don't get out of the way, respectfully move around them and do what needs to be done, because the struggle is much bigger than any of us that is a part of the struggle. Thank you.
immigrant rights work. Immigrant rights work. My mom was an organizer in North Carolina around immigrant organizing, and she was an organizer that was involved with Highlander. She was invited, and I was like 14 at the time, getting sort of dragged to events, and then eventually became more and more sort of deeply involved with them through Student Action with Farm Workers and through the Highlander Center.
I got involved in the civil rights movement in a small way, probably in 1959 with the NAACP in Mississippi. And then in early 1961, actively got involved with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And it was through the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that I was introduced to Highlander.
I like being introduced to Highlander in the South where it wasn't a place. And then I liked coming to the place and finding the home or the core of that dispersal.
I know it was more than 10 years ago, and it was a gathering of labor educators and activists who were also popular education practitioners. And I don't even know how I got on the guest list, really, because when I walked in the room, I didn't know nobody up in there.
And I think that is what Highlander has been and will continue to be, a place where we can gather and pull together forces, think, strategize, and move. And I have had some of the most important conversations and relationship building here as anywhere across the South. So I'm really, I'm thrilled to be here and represent and continue to support Highlander.
Well, we were involved in the desegregation movement in the 50s, and that was very exciting because, of course, Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and Pete Seeger were all coming at that time, and even Mrs. Roosevelt, you know.
So I came out to Highlander today because I was kind of burnt out in the work that I was doing. I'm a physician. I do a lot of HIV prevention work, and I read The Long Haul at a critical time when I needed to. And I was very excited about the ideas and invested in using popular education in what I was doing, so I came to check it out.
And I've come to many workshops, and I found those formulas there. And it has something to do with this idea that when you came to Highlander, you brought with you the knowledge of what you needed to know to deal with questions you needed to raise. You knew enough to be able to share that with other people who might be doing the same thing in their community. And Highlander might have 2 or 3 other people who might actually be supportive, expansive, who were not of your generation or not of your particular movement. And these were like resource people. And it had to do with something about you do not need to lecture to people about what's going on in their lives. You do need to give them support to find time, often away from the intensity of the day-to-day combat, to actually try to understand, name clearly for themselves what they were doing, and raise questions about what the other things they could be doing. Was there something they needed to learn? It was an amazing kind of experience for me.
When there is beauty in the person, there is harmony in the whole. When there is harmony in the whole, there is honor in the nation.
It also has been an umbrella where other processes can happen, and Highlander, I think that is one of the things why we are celebrating 75 years, because Highlander hasn't been obsessed with power, of being power and controlling and leading and being it, but more a place where people can come, work on their own processes and also continue them wherever they are going. So it's this kind of an umbrella where things are born or they are strengthened, and then they keep happening somewhere else.
You walk into the mall, you don't agree to respect everybody there. There's not an unsaid rule or unsaid principle, I guess. I mean, walking into that tent, you're accepting everybody in there. And we are not often put in places where we are fully accepted unconditionally. So I think that's what I and you are feeling.
It always goes where the action is, really.
I wanted to come here because it's the thing that legends are made of. I mean, this is like our cultural mecca in many ways, for me, in terms of the progressive, leftist, black liberation, civil rights, you know, unionizing, organizing efforts in this country.
So it's always on the cutting edge. And so if you want to go to the cutting edge, you go to Highlander.